Cleveland man who likened himself to actor Paul Walker in the Fast and the Furious movies gets 20 years in prison for crime spree. Glenn Adkins Jr., center, at his Thursday, November 7, 2019 sentencing hearing for a spree of break-ins, burglaries, and shootings in Cleveland's Old Brooklyn neighborhood. Adkins is seated next to attorneys Tom Shaughnessy and Morgan Caruso. Cleveland, Ohio. A 22-year-old Cleveland man who prosecutors say likened himself in police interviews to the late actor Paul Walker in the Fast and the Furious movie franchise was sentenced to 2 decades in prison Thursday for launching an 18-month crime spree that terrorized Cleveland's Old Brooklyn and Slavic Village neighborhoods. Glenn Adkins Jr. launched a barrage of break-ins, armed robberies, shootings, and high-speed police chases with other members of his family in 2016 and 2017. Residents waited up at night with shotguns out of fear that Adkins would burst into their homes, and police set up a special task force dedicated solely to investigating and arresting Adkins. Common Pleas Judge William T. McGinty sentenced Adkins on Thursday to 20 years in prison after he pleaded guilty to dozens of charges including felonious assault of a police officer, aggravated robbery, aggravated burglary, breaking and entering and theft. Adkins, who faced a maximum of 30 years behind bars as part of his plea, will be placed on parole for 5 years after his release. If he violates the terms of his parole, he could go back to prison for another 10 years. At the end of the day, you have got 30 years hanging over your head, McGinty told Adkins. If you want to do the other 10, you'll show us by your actions. Cuyahoga County Prosecutor Michael O'Malley, who had asked during Thursday's hearing that McGinty impose the maximum sentence, said he thought the sentence was fair. Few defendants match the avalanche of crimes that Glenn Adkins perpetrated upon our community, O'Malley said in a statement released through a spokesman. Thankfully, his reign of terror has come to an end and our community is safer as a result. Adkins' spree began in the fall of 2016, when he was a passenger in a car that led State Highway Patrol troopers on a chase that reached 115 miles per hour along Ohio 176 and Interstate 480. Assistant Cuyahoga County Prosecutor Elena Thomas said in court Thursday. Adkins, who was 19 at the time of the spree, worked often with his younger brothers whose cases were handled in juvenile court, Thomas said. They broke into several cars, then started burglarizing houses and garages. The crimes escalated from daytime burglaries when the victims were home to Adkins and the others breaking into people's homes at night while they were asleep, she said. The group often targeted car keys in the burglaries so they could steal cars. Then they swiped license plates off of other cars to replace the ones on the stolen cars to cover their tracks, Thomas said. A homeowner on October 5, 2016 caught the group trying to steal his motorcycle in the middle of the night, and confronted the group with a handgun, Thomas said. The altercation ended with the homeowner and his wife firing shots as Adkins and his brothers rushed toward them. No one was injured, and the Adkins brothers ran away. But police found stolen prescriptions, power tools, and other items in a nearby Toyota Camry that tied Adkins to a string of other burglaries and break-ins, and the victims posted a photo of the burglars to Facebook that resulted in anonymous tipsters leading them and police to the Adkins family. Adkins break-ins continued to pile up over the next several months, until a September 19, 2017 spree that saw Adkins fire gunshots at 2 separate people, injure a police officer trying to arrest him and lead police on another high-speed chase. A man awoke in his home to find someone had entered his house, took the keys to his Chevrolet Camaro and stolen the car. A woman said someone broke into her home in the middle of the night and stole her jewelry. Adkins and one of his brothers then tried to steal a 31-year-old man's car, but the man woke up and caught them. The man confronted the duo and chased them as they hopped into their car. Adkins, who was in the driver's seat, started to drive away but stopped as the man kept chasing him. Adkins then pulled out a gun and fired 3 shots at the men before they sped away, Thomas said. The man was not shot, but bullets pierced his home, Thomas said. That same evening later, a Cleveland police officer spotted Adkins and to arrest him. Adkins ran away and hopped into a car with a woman in the driver's seat. As the officer reached through the passenger window, Adkins yelled for the driver to go. Go, go, Thomas said. The driver obeyed and the officer was dragged for several feet, she said. 2 hours after that, Adkins was driving a stolen blue Hyundai Tucson and pulled a gun on a driver in a road rage incident and fired shots at the other driver, Thomas said. That same night, Cleveland police spotted Adkins again in the Tucson and Adkins flipped them off. Police pursued him, but a supervisor eventually called off the chase due to the department's policy prohibiting most police chases. The next day, officers spotted Adkins, this time in a white Audi, and tried to pull him over, Thomas said. He again fled, they again chased him, and the chase was terminated without his arrest. 2 days later, on September 22, 2017, detectives with Cleveland's Gang Impact Unit spotted Adkins at a gas station, but he again escapes after a brief pursuit. Thomas said the informal task force then asked U.S. Marshals to help arrest Adkins. Agents tracked him and other family members to the Red Roof Inn on Rockside Road in Independence, and officers arrested him, his 2 brothers and his mother, Mary Leach. The fact that no one was harmed is remarkable, stated Thomas. That should not be taken into consideration here because it is based on luck. Leach was charged in an attack the day of the arrest and was sent to prison for a year. She has since been charged with escape and obstruction of justice and is on probation. Sabrina Zart cried as she told McGinty her home in Old Brooklyn was one of several that Adkins and his brothers broke into several times. They had bought a motion-activated, night vision camera to catch neighborhood children who were vandalizing their fence, but the camera caught the group trying to steal an ATV parked in the garage, she said. As word around the neighborhood spread that Adkins and the group were getting more brazen, she said she and her husband slept in shifts as the others sat on the couch with the light turned off with a shotgun, in case the group tried to come into their home and assault them. Nobody should have to do that, Zart, dressed in scrubs. Zart said she and her husband eventually sold their home and moved out of the neighborhood after the fear became too much to bear. O'Malley, a former Cleveland city councilman who represented Old Brooklyn's ward before he became a prosecutor, told McGinty that it was people like Adkins who are driving residents out of Cleveland. O'Malley said if we allow people like Mr. Adkins to run loose and destroy the city of Cleveland, then there will soon be nothing left. Adkins attorneys Tom Shaughnessy and Morgan Caruso said Leach was addicted to heroin and spent her children's childhood cycling in and out of prison. Adkins was 6 years old when he witnessed his father's suicide, and he and his brothers spent much of their childhood homeless and sleeping in cars to stay warm. Adkins dropped out of school after the 8th grade and started stealing to provide for his younger brothers, and to feed his mother's heroin addictions, the attorneys said. He never had a chance. Adkins apologized to the victims of his crimes and to a group of police officers sitting in the courtroom's jury box to view the sentencing. I wasn't in the right state of mind, I was under the influence of drugs, Adkins said. He added, I really never had a chance. McGinty said he hoped Adkins would use his time in prison to seek substance abuse counseling, get his GED and either learn a trade or work toward a college education that will help him better land on his feet when he gets out of prison. This is a broken man, McGinty said.